I never thought a small plastic tube would destroy my entire world. But there it was, sitting on my kitchen counter on a Tuesday morning in March, gleaming innocently in the sunlight streaming through the window. The DNA testing kit had arrived 3 days earlier, wrapped in cheerful purple packaging that promised to unlock the mysteries of my ancestry. I'd ordered it on a whim during a late-night browsing session, captivated by the commercials showing tearful reunions and people discovering they were descended from royalty or ancient warriors. It seemed like harmless fun, a way to fill in the blanks of a family tree that had always felt incomplete. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 34 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, with my husband Daniel, in a renovated craftsman house we bought 2 years ago. We have a golden retriever named Cooper, a mortgage we're still getting used to, and the kind of comfortable, ordinary life that most people dream about. Daniel works as an architect at a mid-sized firm downtown, and I teach English at a local high school. We met 7 years ago at a coffee shop in the Pearl District, where I was grading papers and he was sketching building designs. He'd accidentally taken my latte instead of his cappuccino, and when he came back to apologize, we ended up talking for 3 hours straight. It was the kind of meet-cute that people write romance novels about. We got married 4 years ago in a small ceremony at a vineyard in Willamette Valley, surrounded by close friends and family. It was perfect. Daniel's parents flew in from Boston. My mom came up from Sacramento, and even my estranged Aunt Martha made an appearance, though she left early citing a headache. I wore my grandmother's pearls, Daniel cried during his vows, and we danced to At Last by Etta James as the sun set over the rolling hills of grapevines. That night, as we drove to our honeymoon cabin, Daniel held my hand and told me he'd never been more certain about anything in his life. I felt the same way. He was my best friend, my partner, my home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to that Tuesday morning, to the moment when everything changed. I'd woken up early, made coffee, and decided to finally spit into that tube. The instructions were simple enough. Don't eat or drink for 30 minutes before. Fill the tube to the line, seal it, and send it back in the prepaid envelope. I felt silly doing it, pursing my lips and filling the container with saliva while Cooper watched me with his head tilted in confusion. But I was curious. I'd always felt like there were missing pieces in my family history, gaps that no one wanted to talk about. My father died when I was 6 years old in a car accident. I have fragmented memories of him. His laugh that sounded like thunder, the way he smelled like wood smoke and Old Spice, how he'd lift me onto his shoulders and call me his little bird. After he died, my mother withdrew into herself, becoming a ghost in our own house. She worked double shifts as a nurse and rarely talked about him. When I asked questions about his side of the family, she'd change the subject or say she didn't remember. It was as if his entire existence had been erased the moment his heart stopped beating. Growing up, I only knew my mother's family, my grandmother Eleanor, who died when I was 16, and my Aunt Martha, who lived somewhere in Northern California and sent cards on birthdays but never visited. My mother was an only child, or so she claimed, though I once found a photograph in her jewelry box of her with another young woman who looked strikingly similar to her. When I asked about it, she snatched it away and told me I was snooping where I didn't belong. That was the end of that conversation. Daniel's family was the complete opposite, loud, warm, and sprawling. His parents, Richard and Patricia, were the kind of people who threw elaborate dinner parties and knew every single branch of their family tree going back to the 1700s. They had framed genealogical charts in their dining room and could tell you exactly which great-great-grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War and which great-aunt had been a suffragette. The first time I met them, Patricia spent an hour showing me photo albums and explaining how Daniel's eyes came from his maternal grandmother and his height from his paternal grandfather. I'd sat there smiling and nodding, feeling a strange mix of wonder and envy. They knew where they came from. I barely knew who my own grandparents were. That's why I ordered the DNA test. I wanted to know. I wanted to see my ancestry broken down into percentages and regions, to find out if I had Viking blood, or Mediterranean roots, or West African heritage. I wanted names, connections, distant cousins who might be able to fill in the blanks. I wanted to understand the other half of myself, the half that died with my father and was buried along with all the stories my mother refused to tell. I mailed the kit back that same Tuesday and then promptly forgot about it. Life got busy, midterm exams, a leak in the upstairs bathroom, Daniel's big presentation at work. 6 weeks passed in a blur of grading papers, walking Cooper, and planning a summer trip to Vancouver. Then, on a rainy Friday afternoon in May, I got an email notification. My results were ready. I was sitting at my desk during my planning period when the notification popped up on my phone. My heart did a little skip of excitement, the same feeling you get when you're about to open a gift. I clicked the link and logged into my account, watching as the page loaded with colorful pie charts and percentages. 52% Northwestern European, England, Scotland, Ireland. 23% Scandinavian, 15% Eastern European, 10% broadly European. Nothing too surprising there. I'd always assumed my pale skin and light brown hair came from somewhere in Northern Europe. But then I clicked on the Relatives tab, and my stomach dropped. There were hundreds of matches. Distant cousins, fourth cousins twice removed, people who shared 0.2% of my DNA. But at the very top of the list, marked as a close family member, first cousin, was a name that made my blood turn to ice. Daniel Mitchell. I stared at the screen, convinced I was misreading it. Daniel Mitchell, shared DNA, 12.5%. Relationship first cousin. My hand started shaking. This had to be a mistake. Daniel and I weren't related. We'd known each other's families. We talked about our backgrounds. There was no possible way we could be cousins. I clicked on his profile with trembling fingers, but there was no photo. No information. Just that name and that percentage staring back at me like an accusation. I closed the browser immediately, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Around me, the classroom felt too small, too bright. Through the window, I could see students walking across the quad, laughing and shoving each other, completely unaware that my entire reality was crumbling. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a different Daniel Mitchell. That's a common name, right? Maybe it was a glitch in the system. Maybe someone else had used Daniel's name as a joke. But deep down, I knew the truth. Daniel had taken one of these tests too. He'd done it 6 months ago, right after Christmas. His sister had given everyone in the family DNA kits as gifts, and they'd all spit into tubes together on Christmas morning, laughing about what royal bloodlines they might discover. Daniel had shown me his results when they came in, mostly British and Irish, with some French and German mixed in, which lined up perfectly with what his parents had told him. We'd looked at his relative matches together, finding his sister Emily right at the top, along with various second and third cousins he'd never heard of. I'd been standing right next to him when he did it, and I hadn't seen my own name anywhere on his list. But that was 6 months ago. Before I'd taken my test, before my DNA had entered the database, I somehow made it through the rest of the school day on autopilot, teaching my afternoon classes without any memory of what I actually said. When the final bell rang, I grabbed my bag and practically ran to my car, my mind racing with questions and possibilities and denials. I drove home in a daze, nearly running a red light on Burnside. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. There had to be. Daniel's car was already there. He'd taken the afternoon off to work on some designs from home. I found him in his office, hunched over his drafting table with his reading glasses perched on his nose, looking exactly like he did every day. Normal, safe, mine. Cooper was curled up at his feet, tail thumping when he saw me. Daniel looked up and smiled, that warm, open smile that had made me fall in love with him in the first place. "Hey, babe," he said, pulling off his glasses. How was school? I couldn't do it. I couldn't just blurt it out. So instead, I said something about grading essays and asked what he wanted for dinner. We fell into our normal evening routine. I changed out of my work clothes. We took Cooper for a walk around the neighborhood. We made pasta and talked about our days. The whole time, I felt like I was watching us from outside my own body, seeing our life play out like a scene in a movie. Here was the happy couple, walking their dog under the trees. Here they were, cooking together, laughing at a joke. Here was the perfect marriage, built on a foundation that might not even be real. That night, I lay awake next to Daniel, listening to his steady breathing and watching the shadows move across the ceiling. He'd fallen asleep within minutes, the way he always did, completely at peace. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about that DNA match. 12.5%. First cousin. What did that even mean? I pulled out my phone and started Googling, keeping the brightness turned all the way down so I wouldn't wake him. First cousins share approximately 12.5% of their DNA, inheriting it from a common set of grandparents. The words seemed to burn themselves into my retinas. Common grandparents. That meant either my father and one of Daniel's parents were siblings, or my mother and one of Daniel's parents were siblings. But that was impossible. My father was Thomas Ryan, born and raised in rural Montana, while Daniel's father Richard was from a Boston Brahmin family that could trace their lineage back to the Mayflower. My mother, Helen Ryan, was from Sacramento, and Daniel's mother, Patricia, was from Connecticut. They'd never even lived in the same states, unless someone was lying. I spent the entire weekend spiraling, pretending everything was fine while my mind churned through possibilities. I watched Daniel carefully, looking for familial resemblances I'd never noticed before. Did he have my father's nose, my mother's eyes? But we'd always looked completely different. He was tall and dark-haired with olive skin, while I was average height with fair skin and light hair. We looked nothing alike. That had to mean something, right? By Monday, I'd decided I needed to confront my mother. If there were secrets in my family history, she was the one keeping them. I called her during my lunch break, trying to keep my voice steady and casual. Mom? Hey, I have kind of a random question for you. What is it, Sarah? I'm about to head to the grocery store. Her voice had that edge of impatience she always got when I called during the day. Did you or Dad have any siblings I don't know about? Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then carefully, why are you asking me this? My heart started racing. I took one of those DNA tests and... You did what? Her voice went sharp, almost panicked. Sarah, why would you do something like that? Because I wanted to know about my ancestry, I said defensively. And there's something weird in the results, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Dad have any siblings? Or do you? I don't want to talk about this over the phone. She sounded strangled now, all the color drained from her voice. Can you come visit this weekend? Mom, just tell me. This weekend, Sarah. We'll talk then. And she hung up. I sat in my car in the school parking lot, staring at my phone. She knew something. The panic in her voice confirmed it. Whatever this was, whatever connection existed between me and Daniel, my mother knew about it. And she'd kept it hidden for my entire life. The week dragged by like molasses. I couldn't tell Daniel. What would I even say? Hey, honey, according to my DNA test, we might be first cousins, so that's fun. I kept waiting for the right moment, but it never came. Meanwhile, I did more research, trying to understand how this could have happened. I learned about NPE, non-paternity events, where the assumed father isn't the biological father. I learned about adoption secrets, family scandals, hidden siblings given up or hidden away. I learned that families keep all kinds of secrets, and DNA tests have a way of dragging them into the light. I also learned that in Oregon, it's illegal for first cousins to marry. The marriage wouldn't be recognized, which meant that legally, Daniel and I might not even be married. 4 years of marriage, potentially null and void because of something that happened before either of us were born. Saturday morning, I told Daniel I was going to visit my mom for the day. He offered to come with me, but I made up an excuse about needing some mother-daughter time. He kissed me goodbye on the porch, told me to drive safely, and waved as I backed out of the driveway. I watched him in my rearview mirror until I turned the corner, wondering if everything would be different when I got back. Wondering if I'd still be able to look at him the same way once I knew the truth. The drive to Sacramento took about 9 hours. I stopped once for gas and a terrible cup of coffee, then pushed through until I pulled up outside my mother's small ranch house in the suburbs. She must have been watching for me because the front door opened before I even got out of the car. She looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow, wrapped in a cardigan despite the warm May weather. "Come in," she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. I made tea. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one I'd eaten breakfast at every morning growing up, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. She poured tea into mismatched mugs, her hands shaking slightly. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "The DNA test says Daniel is my first cousin." She closed her eyes. "Oh, Sarah, tell me how that's possible. Tell me the truth." She took a long breath, and when she opened her eyes again, they were bright with tears. "Your father wasn't Thomas Ryan." The words hung in the air between us. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "What?" "Thomas Ryan, Tom. He was my husband, and he loved you more than anything in this world, but he wasn't your biological father." Her voice cracked. "I got pregnant with you before we were married, and when I told him, he said it didn't matter. He wanted to marry me anyway, wanted to raise you as his own. And he did. He was your father in every way that mattered." "Then who?" I could barely get the words out. "Who is my biological father?" She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "His name was Richard. Richard Mitchell." The room tilted. "Daniel's father? Daniel's father is my biological father?" She nodded miserably. "We had an affair. It was brief, just a few months, but I got pregnant. He was married to Patricia. They already had Emily, and I was working as a nurse at the hospital where he came after a construction accident. We started talking, and it turned into something more. And I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. When I found out I was pregnant, I ended it immediately. I never told him about you. He never knew." "Does he know now?" My voice sounded hollow. "No. I swear to you, Sarah, Richard Mitchell has no idea you're his daughter. Patricia has no idea. Emily has no idea. The only person who ever knew was Tom, and he's been gone for 28 years. I stood up so fast my chair fell over backward. "How could you let this happen? How could you let me marry Daniel? We're siblings." "Half-siblings," she corrected weakly, then seemed to realize how terrible that sounded. "Sarah, I didn't know you were dating Daniel until you'd been together for over a year. You just said you'd met someone named Daniel who was an architect. You didn't tell me his last name, and when you finally brought him home for dinner, when I heard his last name was Mitchell and he was from Boston, I prayed. It was just a coincidence. Mitchell is a common name. But then you met his parents," I said, my voice rising. "At the engagement party. You met Richard. You must have recognized him." She covered her face with her hands. It had been 30 years. He'd aged. I wasn't even sure it was the same man at first. And by the time I was sure, you were already engaged. You were so happy, Sarah. You and Daniel were so perfect together. I told myself maybe the DNA wouldn't be a problem. Maybe you wouldn't have children. Maybe what? Maybe I'd never find out I married my own brother. I was shouting now, all the fear and confusion of the past week pouring out as rage. "Did you think about what this means? Our marriage might not even be legal. What if we want kids? Do you know what the risks are? What kind of mother keeps a secret like this?" "A mother who wanted her daughter to be happy," she shouted back, standing up to face me. "A mother who watched her daughter fall in love with a good man and didn't want to take that away from her." "Tom died when you were 6, Sarah. You barely remember him. I've been alone for almost 30 years. I've watched you grow up, go to college, build a career, and I've been so proud of you. And then you found Daniel, and you lit up in a way I hadn't seen since you were a little girl. How was I supposed to tell you that you couldn't be with him? That everything was built on my mistake? By telling the truth, I screamed. You tell the truth. That's what parents are supposed to do. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, desperate to get out of that house, away from her, away from the bomb she'd just dropped on my life. Sarah, wait. I need time, I said, without turning around. I need to think. I need to figure out what to do. Are you going to tell Daniel? I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. Was I? How did you even begin that conversation? Hi, honey. Remember how we got married and built a life together? Well, funny story, we share a father. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know anything anymore. I drove home through the night, tears streaming down my face, my mind a chaos of thoughts and emotions. I felt betrayed by my mother, by the universe, by my own DNA. I kept thinking about Daniel, about the way he'd kissed me goodbye that morning, completely unaware that when I came back, I'd be carrying information that could destroy us, because that's what this felt like, destruction. Everything we'd built together, every moment, every memory, was now tainted by this impossible truth. Half-siblings. The word kept echoing in my head. Daniel was my half-brother. We shared a father, which meant that when we'd met in that coffee shop 7 years ago, when we'd fallen in love, when we'd promised to love each other for the rest of our lives, we'd been violating one of society's deepest taboos without even knowing it. We were living in a Greek tragedy, except no gods had cursed us. Just one woman's affair 35 years ago. I got home around 3 a.m. Daniel had left the porch light on for me. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at our house, at the life we'd built. Through the window, I could see the lamp we'd bought at an estate sale, the bookshelf we'd assembled together one frustrating Saturday afternoon, the framed photo of our wedding day hanging on the wall. Inside that house was my husband, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone else in the world, the person I couldn't imagine living without, the person I might have to leave. I finally went inside, moving quietly so I wouldn't wake him. But as I climbed the stairs, I heard movement in the bedroom. He was awake. Sarah? His voice was rough with sleep. That you? Yeah. I stood in the doorway, trying to see him in the darkness. Sorry I'm so late. I just needed to drive for a while. You okay? Did something happen with your mom? Did something happen? That was one way to put it. We need to talk, I said, the words feeling like stones in my mouth. But not right now. I'm exhausted. Can we talk in the morning? I heard him shift in bed, heard the concern in his voice. You're scaring me a little. Is everything okay? No, I said honestly. But it will wait until morning, I promise. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked the same as I had a week ago, before the DNA results, but I felt like a completely different person. The woman in the mirror was someone who'd married her half-brother. Someone whose entire life was a lie. Someone who had to decide whether to tell the truth and lose everything, or keep the secret and live with the knowledge forever. I climbed into bed next to Daniel, and he immediately pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me the way he always did. Whatever it is, he murmured into my hair. We'll figure it out together. I closed my eyes and let myself sink into his warmth, wondering if this might be the last time I got to hold him like this. Because once I told him the truth, everything would change. He'd look at me differently, touch me differently. Maybe he wouldn't want to touch me at all anymore. Maybe he'd pack a bag and leave, unable to even look at me without seeing the sister he'd accidentally married. Maybe he'd hate me. Maybe he'd hate himself. Maybe we'd lose each other completely. Two people who loved each other more than anything, but couldn't be together because of something that happened before either of us were born. Sleep didn't come. I lay there until the sun rose, watching the light creep across the bedroom ceiling, listening to Daniel's steady breathing. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Cooper's nails clicking on the hardwood floor downstairs. Daniel was already up. I found him in the kitchen making breakfast. He'd laid out my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle that I refused to throw away. When he saw me, he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Morning, I made French toast." "Thanks." I sat down at the counter, wrapping my hands around the coffee mug. My throat felt tight. He slid a plate in front of me, then leaned against the counter, studying my face. "Okay, you're officially worrying me. What happened in Sacramento?" I took a breath, then another. "I need to tell you something, and it's going to sound insane, but I need you to hear me out." "Okay." He set down his own mug, giving me his full attention. "I'm listening. Remember when I took that DNA test a few weeks ago?" "Yeah, the ancestry thing. Did you find out you're part Viking or something?" He was trying to keep it light, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "I found out we're related." The words came out flat, emotionless. "According to the test, you're my first cousin. We share 12.5% of our DNA." He stared at me for a long moment, then laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "That's impossible. Our families are completely different. There's no way we're related." That's what I thought too, but I went to see my mom yesterday and she told me the truth. I forced myself to look at him, to watch his face as I destroyed everything. My dad, Tom Ryan, wasn't my biological father. My real father is Richard Mitchell, your dad, which makes us half-siblings. The color drained from his face. "What?" "Your father and my mother had an affair 35 years ago. She got pregnant with me. She never told him. He doesn't know I exist." The words kept coming, mechanical now, like I was reading from a script. "She married Tom Ryan and he raised me as his own daughter. And then we met, and we fell in love. And she knew, but she didn't say anything because she wanted me to be happy. So we got married, not knowing that we share a father." Daniel backed away from the counter, his hand over his mouth. No, this can't be real. You're telling me that my father cheated on my mother and had a kid he doesn't know about. And that kid is you, and we're what? Siblings? Half-siblings. Jesus Christ, Sarah. He was shouting now, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. Cooper sensed the tension and slunk away to his bed in the living room. "We're married. We've been together for 7 years. He stopped abruptly, his face going even paler. "Oh God, we've been sleeping together. We've been trying to have a baby." "I know." My voice cracked. "I know. Does my dad know?" "No, my mom says she never told him. As far as Richard knows, you're his only child besides Emily." He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, Cooper's quiet breathing from the other room, the distant sound of traffic outside, normal sounds in a world that no longer felt normal. Finally, Daniel looked up at me and his eyes were red. "What do we do?" "I don't know." It was the most honest answer I could give. "Do we tell people? Do we tell my parents? Emily?" He laughed bitterly. "Hey Mom, Dad, surprise. You've actually got 2 kids and I accidentally married my secret half-sister. Happy Mother's Day." "We don't have to tell anyone," I said quickly. "We could just keep living our lives. Nobody has to know." I know. Your mom knows." He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair backward. "How are we supposed to just pretend everything's normal? Every time we're in bed together, I'm going to be thinking about the fact that you're my sister. Every time I kiss you, every time I touch you. God, Sarah, we're related. That's not something you can just ignore." "I'm the same person I was yesterday," I said desperately. "Nothing about me has changed. We're the same people we've always been. The only thing that's different is we know the truth now. The truth that we committed incest." He was shouting again, his face twisted with anguish. "Do you understand what that means? In some states, what we did is a crime. Our marriage might not even be legal. And you want us to just keep living like nothing happened? What's the alternative? I was shouting now too. Years of fear and frustration pouring out. We get divorced? We throw away 7 years together because of something our parents did? We tell everyone the truth and become the subject of gossip and disgust? We lose our friends, our families, our entire lives because of a stupid DNA test? Yes. He slammed his hand on the counter. Maybe that's exactly what we do. Maybe we tell the truth and deal with the consequences because that's what decent people do when they find out they've been living a lie. So you want to leave me? It wasn't a question. He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something like revulsion in his eyes. It was only there for a second, but I saw it, and it shattered something inside me. I don't know what I want, he said finally. I just know I can't be here right now. I need to think. He grabbed his keys and wallet from the counter and headed for the door. I followed him, panic rising in my chest. Daniel, wait. I need space, Sarah. I need to process this. I need to figure out what the hell we're supposed to do now. He paused at the door, his back to me. I love you. I've loved you since the moment we met. But I can't look at you right now without seeing... His voice broke. I just need time. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a gentle click that felt like the end of the world. I stood there in the empty hallway, listening to his car start and pull away, and then I collapsed on the floor and cried harder than I'd ever cried in my life. Cooper came and laid his head in my lap, whimpering softly, but even his comfort couldn't fill the void that Daniel had left behind. He didn't come home that night, or the next night. I texted him, called him, left voicemails, but he didn't respond. On the third day, he finally sent a message. Staying at Josh's, need more time. Take care of Cooper. Josh was his best friend from college, one of the groomsmen at our wedding. I wondered if Daniel had told him the truth, if Josh now knew what we were. The thought made me feel sick. I took a week off from work, telling the principal I had a family emergency. It wasn't a lie. I stayed in bed most of the time. Cooper curled up beside me and tried to figure out what to do next. I researched the legal implications of our situation. In Oregon, marriages between first cousins were void. Not voidable, but completely void, as if they'd never existed. Half-siblings were even more restricted. Our marriage certificate meant nothing. We'd never legally been married at all. But I also researched the medical implications. Half-siblings who had children together had a slightly increased risk of genetic abnormalities. But it wasn't astronomical, maybe 5 to 6% instead of the general population's 3 to 4%. People who were actual first cousins had similar risks, and cousin marriage was legal in half the states in the country. From a purely medical standpoint, what we had wasn't the genetic disaster movies made it out to be. Not that it mattered. The social taboo was too strong. Society had rules about incest for a reason, and even though we hadn't known, even though we'd fallen in love innocently, we'd still broken those rules. There was no coming back from that. On the 8th day, Daniel came home. I was in the kitchen, forcing myself to eat a piece of toast, when I heard his key in the lock. My heart started racing. Cooper bounded to the door, tail wagging frantically, and I heard Daniel's voice, low and tired, greeting the dog. Then he appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, and we stared at each other across the room like strangers. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his clothes rumpled. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." My voice came out as a whisper. He sat down at the table, and after a moment I joined him. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally he spoke. I told Josh. I had to tell someone or I was going to lose my mind. He thinks we should get an annulment, tell our families the truth, and move on with our lives separately. He said it's the only way to handle something like this with integrity. "What do you think?" I asked, even though I was terrified of the answer. He was quiet for a long time. I think Josh is probably right. I think the moral thing to do is to end this and be honest about why. He paused, his hands clasped tightly on the table. But I also think I can't imagine my life without you, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things. I love you, I said, tears starting to fall. I love you so much, Daniel. You're my best friend. You're my home. I know what we are now. I know what it means. But I can't just turn off 7 years of love because of biology. We're siblings, Sarah. His voice broke on the word. Half siblings. That's not something we can just overlook. But we didn't know, I said desperately. We fell in love before we knew the truth. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't the fact that we chose each other, that we built this life together, mean anything? Of course it means something. It means everything. He reached across the table and took my hand, and the touch sent electricity through me. The same electricity that had always been there, from the very first time we'd touched. But I don't know if love is enough when everything else is wrong. We sat there holding hands across the table, both crying, both broken. Eventually we started talking, really talking. We discussed our options. We could get divorced and tell everyone the truth, facing the scandal and judgment together before going our separate ways. We could get divorced and keep the reason private, making up some acceptable excuse about growing apart. Or we could stay together and keep the secret, living with the knowledge of what we were but choosing each other anyway. What do you want? He asked me. In your heart of hearts, what do you really want? I looked at him, at his dark eyes that had looked at me with love for 7 years, at the hands that had held mine through good times and bad, at the man who had promised to love me forever. I want you, I said simply. I want our life. I want to wake up next to you every morning and go to bed next to you every night. I want to grow old together and travel the world and maybe have kids someday if the medical risks are acceptable. I want us, Daniel. Even knowing what we are, I want us. He closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. God help me, I want that too. And so we made a choice. We chose each other. We chose love over convention, relationship over biology, the life we'd built over the truth that could destroy it. It wasn't an easy choice, and it wasn't one we made lightly. We talked for hours about the implications, the risks, the moral weight of what we were doing. We agreed that we'd never have children. The genetic risks, combined with the ethical questions, were too much. We agreed that we'd never tell anyone else, that this secret would stay between us, my mother, and Josh, who Daniel swore would never breathe a word of it. We agreed that we'd move forward with our eyes open, fully aware of what we were and what that meant, choosing each other anyway. I called my mother and told her our decision. She cried. Sarah, are you sure? You can still walk away from this. You can start over. I don't want to start over, I told her. I want the life I have. But I need you to promise me something. You need to promise me that Richard will never know. That this secret dies with us. I promise, she said. I swear to you, I will never tell a soul. We hung up, and I felt something shift inside me. My mother had kept a secret for 35 years to protect me, in her own misguided way. Now I would keep this secret to protect what Daniel and I had. Maybe that made me complicit in the same kind of deception, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Some secrets, I was learning, were kept not out of shame, but out of love. The next few months were strange. We went back to work, back to our routines, back to the surface-level normalcy of our lives. But underneath, everything had changed. There was a new awareness between us, a constant consciousness of what we were. Sometimes I'd catch Daniel looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Love mixed with something else. Maybe guilt or confusion, or just the weight of our secret. Sometimes I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if we'd made the right choice, or if we were just delaying the inevitable. But then there were moments when everything felt right again. When we'd be cooking dinner together and he'd make a joke that sent me into fits of laughter, Or when we'd be walking Cooper through the neighborhood and our hands would brush and then intertwine naturally. Or when he'd pull me close on the couch while we watched a movie, and I'd fit perfectly against his chest the way I always had. In those moments, the biology didn't matter. What we were on paper didn't change what we felt. Didn't diminish the years we'd spent building a life together. We made an appointment with a geneticist, claiming we were concerned about family medical history before trying for children. The doctor went through our family trees, or at least the ones we presented with my father listed as Thomas Ryan, and told us there were no significant genetic red flags. When we left the office, Daniel turned to me in the parking lot. "We could still have kids," he said quietly. "The doctor said we're fine." I shook my head. "You know what the doctor would have said if we'd told her the truth." "We can't, Daniel. It's too risky and it's not fair to a child. We made that decision." He nodded slowly. "I know. I always imagined us with kids. Little versions of you running around the house." "Little versions of us," I corrected gently. "And we still can. We can adopt, foster. There are lots of ways to build a family." He smiled at that. And we held each other in that parking lot for a long time, grieving the children we'd never have biologically, while also finding hope in the other possibilities. Life went on. We celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary, or what would have been our 5th anniversary if our marriage had been legal, with a quiet dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. We renovated the kitchen, turning it into the bright modern space we'd always dreamed of. We took a trip to Iceland, where we hiked glaciers and soaked in hot springs, and fell in love all over again under the midnight sun. From the outside, we looked like any other happy couple, and most of the time on the inside, we felt like one too. But the secret weighed on us. Some days more than others. There were moments when I'd see other couples living their lives openly, without shame or fear, and I'd feel a stab of envy. They could tell their families everything. They could have biological children without a second thought. They didn't have to lie about why they'd decided not to have kids. Didn't have to carefully edit their conversations to avoid revealing too much. The hardest times were family gatherings. Christmas at the Mitchell house became a special kind of torture. I'd sit at the dinner table with Richard at the head, passing the potatoes and making small talk, knowing that he was my biological father and had no idea. I'd watch him interact with Emily, his daughter who knew she was his daughter, and wonder what it would be like if he knew the truth. Would he see the resemblance? Now that I knew, I could see it. We had the same hands, the same way of tilting our heads when we were thinking. But he never noticed. Why would he? I was just his daughter-in-law. Patricia was harder. Daniel's mother was warm and welcoming, always treating me like her own daughter. She'd pull me aside at family events to show me old photos of Daniel as a child, or to ask my opinion on something she was planning. "You're the daughter I never had," she told me once, hugging me tight. I'd smiled and hugged her back, all while thinking about the daughter she actually didn't have, the one who was created from her husband's affair and who had married her son. Emily was perhaps the most painful. She adored Daniel, and by extension, had adopted me as her sister-in-law and best friend. We'd go shopping together, have lunch dates, text each other funny memes throughout the day. She had no idea that I was actually her half-sister, that the bond between us was more than just marriage. Sometimes I wanted to tell her, to have that real connection instead of the fake one, but I never could. The secret had to stay buried. About a year after the revelation, we got a call from Josh. He'd met someone, he said, and it was getting serious. He wanted to bring her to dinner so we could meet her. Her name was Rebecca, and she was a lawyer who just moved to Portland from Seattle. We agreed to dinner, though I felt anxious about it. Josh knew our secret. What if he told her? What if she figured it out somehow? But when we met Rebecca, my fears evaporated. She was lovely, smart, funny, with a sharp wit and an easy laugh. Over dinner at a Thai restaurant downtown, We talked about everything from politics to travel to the best hiking trails in Oregon. She and Josh clearly adored each other, and watching them together reminded me of Daniel and me in our early days. Before the complication, when love felt simple and pure. As the evening wore on, Rebecca mentioned that she was adopted. "I've always been curious about my birth family," she said, swirling wine in her glass. "I've thought about doing one of those DNA tests, but I'm not sure I want to open that can of worms, you know? What if I find out something I don't want to know?" The table went silent. Daniel and I exchanged a glance, and I saw Josh shift uncomfortably in his seat. Rebecca looked around at all of us, confused. "What? Did I say something wrong?" "No," I said quickly. "It's just DNA tests can be complicated. Sometimes you find out things that change everything you thought you knew about yourself and your family." "Is that what happened to you?" she asked, her lawyer instincts picking up on something beneath the surface. "Sort of," Daniel said carefully. "Sarah took one of those tests and found out some things about her family history that were surprising. But you're glad you know now, right?" Rebecca pressed. "Even if it was hard to learn?" I thought about the question. Was I glad I knew? There were days I wished I'd never ordered that DNA test, never opened that email, never learned the truth. My life had been simpler when I was ignorant. But would I really want to live in that ignorance forever? Would I want to go through life not knowing that my entire existence was built on a lie? "I don't know," I said honestly. "I think knowledge is usually better than ignorance, even when the truth is painful. But there are some truths that come with a price. You have to decide if you're willing to pay it." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully, and the conversation moved on to other topics. But I caught Josh giving us a sympathetic look across the table, and I realized something important. We weren't alone in this. We had at least one friend who knew the truth and didn't judge us, who saw us as more than just our biology. That meant something. 2 years after the DNA test revelation, we made a decision that surprised even us. We decided to look into adoption. We'd talked about it periodically, but always put it off, worried that the adoption process might somehow uncover our secret. But we wanted to be parents, wanted to give a child a loving home, and we finally decided to take the leap. The home study process was invasive and thorough. Social workers came to our house, interviewed us separately and together, asked about our childhoods, our families, our marriage. Every time they asked about our families, I had to carefully craft my answers, always conscious of what I could and couldn't say. Daniel did the same. We'd become expert liars, which wasn't something I was proud of, but it was necessary. "Tell me about your parents," the social worker, a kind woman named Margaret, asked during one interview. "What kind of grandparents do you think they'll be?" I thought about Richard, who didn't know he was actually going to be a grandfather twice over if we adopted. I thought about Patricia, who would love our child without knowing they shared DNA with her. I thought about my mother, who would carry the weight of her secret while watching her grandchild grow up. "They'll be wonderful," I said, because it was true. They're loving, supportive, and they're so excited about this. After 6 months of paperwork, interviews, and waiting, we were approved. And then we waited some more. We'd specified that we were open to any race, any gender, and a fairly wide age range. We just wanted a child who needed a home. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in September. A 6-month-old baby girl, born to a teenage mother who'd decided she couldn't keep her. The baby was healthy, happy, and in need of a family. Did we want to meet her? We went to the foster home the next day, and the moment I held that tiny girl in my arms, everything else fell away. She had dark hair and bright eyes, and when she looked up at me, she made a small cooing sound and wrapped her fingers around my thumb. I looked at Daniel, who was watching us with tears in his eyes, and I knew we'd found our daughter. We named her Maya. Maya Rose Mitchell. We brought her home 2 weeks later, after all the final paperwork was processed, and our house suddenly felt complete. She was ours, Not through biology, but through choice, through love, through the conscious decision to build a family. And maybe, I thought as I rocked her to sleep that first night, that made it even more meaningful. Having Maya changed everything. Suddenly, our days revolved around feeding schedules and diaper changes, and the million small joys of watching a baby discover the world. Daniel was an incredible father, patient, attentive, completely besotted with his daughter. He'd come home from work and immediately scoop her up, talking to her in a soft voice about his day, about the buildings he was designing, about how much he loved her. Watching them together made my heart ache in the best way. But having Maya also made our secret feel heavier. She called us Mama and Dada, not knowing that her parents were actually half-siblings. She'd grow up in a family with a foundation built on lies, the same way I had. And even though I knew we were giving her a good life, a loving home, I couldn't help but wonder if we were doing the right thing. Were we being selfish, building a family on top of a secret that could destroy it? When Maya was 2 years old, we got another call. Did we want to adopt again? A 4-year-old boy this time, who'd been in foster care for most of his life and needed a permanent home. We'd always planned to adopt more than one child, wanted Maya to have a sibling. So we said yes. His name was Lucas, and he came to us wary and withdrawn, a small boy with trauma in his eyes. It took months for him to trust us, to believe that we weren't going to leave him like everyone else had. But slowly, gradually, he began to open up. He started calling Daniel Dad and me Mom. He started laughing, playing, being a kid. And watching him heal, watching him become part of our family, was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Our family of 4 felt right. Daniel and I, Maya and Lucas, Cooper getting older but still loyal as ever. We were a real family, built not on biology but on love and choice and commitment. And most days, I could almost forget about the secret that lurked beneath the surface. But then Maya started kindergarten, and they did a family tree project. She came home excited, waving a worksheet with blank branches to fill in. Teacher says we have to put our family on the tree. Grandmas and grandpas and everyone. I helped her fill it out, writing in names and trying to explain relationships. Here's Grandma Helen, she's my mom. And here's Grandma Patricia and Grandpa Richard, they're Dad's parents. And Aunt Emily, she's Dad's sister. Do I have more aunts and uncles? Maya asked, her little brow furrowed in concentration. Well, Grandma Helen's sister is Aunt Martha, but we don't see her very much, I said, thinking of my estranged aunt who sent birthday cards but nothing more. What about your dad? Maya asked innocently. Who's your dad? I swallowed hard. My dad died before you were born, sweetie. His name was Tom. Oh. She thought about this for a moment. That's sad. Was he nice? He was very nice. He would have loved you so much. She accepted this and went back to coloring in her tree. But the interaction left me shaken. As Maya and Lucas got older, the questions would get harder. They'd want to know more about their family history, about where they came from, and every answer I gave would be wrapped in half-truths, in carefully edited versions of reality. That night, after the kids were in bed, I found Daniel sitting on the back porch, staring out at the dark yard. I sat down next to him, and for a while we just sat in silence. Do you ever regret it? I asked finally. Our choice to stay together? He was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, he admitted. Sometimes I think about what our lives would have been like if we'd made different choices. If we'd walked away from each other when we found out the truth. But then I think about Maya and Lucas, about the family we've built, and I can't imagine it any other way. Those kids needed parents, and we've been good parents. That has to count for something. But we're living a lie, I said softly. Every day with everyone we know, we're lying. We're protecting our family, he corrected. There's a difference, is there? I leaned my head on his shoulder. Sometimes I'm not sure anymore. He wrapped his arm around me. Do you regret it? I thought about the question, really thought about it. Did I regret marrying Daniel? Did I regret staying with him after we learned the truth? Did I regret building this life, adopting these children, creating this family? No, I said finally. I don't regret loving you. I could never regret that. We sat there on the porch until the stars came out, holding each other in the darkness, bound by love and secrets and choices we couldn't take back. The years passed. Maya grew into a bright, curious 10-year-old who loved reading and soccer. Lucas became a thoughtful 8-year-old who drew elaborate pictures and asked profound questions about the world. Daniel's architecture firm made him a partner. I became department chair at my school. We bought a cabin in the mountains where we spent summers hiking and winters skiing. We were living the dream, or at least a version of it. But the secret never went away. It was always there, a shadow lurking beneath everything good and normal and happy. I saw it in the way Daniel would sometimes look at me across the dinner table. A flicker of something. Guilt? Confusion? Regret? Crossing his face before he smiled and asked Lucas about his day. I felt it when we'd visit Richard and Patricia, when I'd have to pretend that the man who was actually my biological father was just my father-in-law. I carried it when I'd talk to my mother on the phone, when she'd ask about the kids, and I'd hear the weight of her own guilt and secrets in the pauses between words. And then, on a rainy November afternoon when Maya was 11 and Lucas was 9, everything changed again. I was in my classroom after school, grading essays, when my phone rang. It was Patricia, Daniel's mother. That alone was unusual. She usually texted rather than called. "Sarah, honey, I need to talk to you about something." Her voice sounded strange, strained. My heart started racing. "Is everything okay? Is Daniel all right?" "Daniel's fine. Everyone's fine. But something's happened. And I think you and Daniel need to come over tonight." "Can you do that?" "Of course." "What's going on?" "I'd rather explain in person." "Can you come around 7? I'll make dinner," I agreed, my mind racing with possibilities. After we hung up, I immediately called Daniel at his office. "Your mom just called. She wants us to come over tonight." She sounded weird. "Weird how?" "I don't know. Off. Upset maybe. She said she needs to talk to us about something." There was a long pause. "You don't think—" "I don't know what to think." I cut him off. "But we'll find out tonight." We arranged for Emily to watch the kids, telling them we had to have dinner with Grandma and Grandpa. Maya grumbled about missing her favorite TV show, but Lucas just hugged us and told us to have fun. We drove to the Mitchell house in tense silence, both of us imagining the worst. Richard and Patricia's home was a beautiful colonial in the suburbs, the kind of house you picture when you think of the American dream. Patricia met us at the door, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Come in, come in. Richard's in the study. Let me get you both some wine." We followed her inside, exchanging worried glances. Patricia poured generous glasses of red wine, her hands shaking slightly, then led us to the study where Richard sat in his leather chair, looking older than I'd ever seen him look. There was a folder on his desk. "Sit down," Patricia said gently. "Please." We sat on the couch, holding our wine glasses like shields. Patricia remained standing, pacing slightly, while Richard just looked at us with an expression I couldn't read. Finally, Patricia spoke. Emily did one of those DNA tests, for fun. She wanted to trace our family heritage, see if there were any surprises in our background. She laughed, but it sounded brittle. Well, she got a surprise, all right. My blood turned to ice. Daniel's hand found mine, gripping it tightly. She found a match, Patricia continued. A close family member. Except it wasn't me or Richard or anyone else we knew. It was marked as a half-sibling. She looked directly at me. "It was you, Sarah." The room spun. Neither Daniel nor I could speak. Richard finally stirred, his voice rough. Emily called me immediately. She was confused, thought it must be a mistake, but I had a DNA test done years ago for a medical screening, so I pulled up my results and checked. He opened the folder and pulled out a paper, holding it up. And there you were, listed as my daughter, 12.5% DNA match. Close family member? Dad, Daniel started, but Richard held up a hand. Let me finish, please. He took a shaky breath. I sat there staring at that screen for an hour, trying to understand how this was possible. And then I started doing the math. You're 39 years old, Sarah. You were born in 1986. And in 1985, I had an affair. He looked at Patricia, who had tears streaming down her face. I'm not proud of it. It was brief, it was stupid, and I've regretted it every day since. Patricia knows about it. I confessed years ago, and she forgave me. But what I didn't know, what I never could have imagined, was that there was a child. Her name was Helen Ryan, Patricia said quietly. Wasn't it? The affair. She was a nurse at the hospital after your construction accident. I nodded numbly, unable to form words. Jesus Christ, Richard whispered, running his hands through his gray hair. All these years, all these family dinners, holidays, celebrations. You've been my daughter, and I never knew. But that's not even the worst part, Patricia said, her voice breaking. Is it? Daniel and I looked at each other. This was it, the moment we'd feared for 6 years. We didn't know, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. When we met, when we fell in love, when we got married, we had no idea we were related. We didn't find out until after we were already married. Richard's face went white. What are you saying? Sarah took a DNA test about 6 years ago, Daniel continued, the words coming faster now. It showed we were first cousins. We went to her mother and she told us the truth, that you were Sarah's biological father. We didn't know what to do. We'd already built a life together. We loved each other, so his voice cracked. We decided to stay together. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia sank into a chair, her hand over her mouth. Richard just stared at us, his expression cycling through shock, horror, and something that might have been sympathy. You've been living with this knowledge for 6 years, Patricia finally said, pretending everything was normal, coming to family dinners, adopting children, all while knowing you were... She couldn't finish the sentence. Half-siblings, I said, finding my voice. Yes, how could you? Richard's voice was anguished. How could you stay together once you knew? Because we love each other, Daniel said fiercely. Because we built a life together before we knew the truth, and we weren't willing to throw it all away because of something that happened before we were born. Because biology doesn't define who we are or what we mean to each other. Biology absolutely defines this, Richard shouted, standing up. You're my children, both of you, and you're married to each other. Do you understand how wrong that is? We understand perfectly, I said quietly. We've lived with that knowledge every single day for 6 years. We've carried that weight, that guilt, that fear. But we made a choice and we'd make it again. Because what Daniel and I have is real. It's more real than blood or DNA or any arbitrary rules about who can love whom. Those aren't arbitrary rules, Patricia said, her voice sharp. They exist for a reason. They exist to prevent exactly this kind of situation. We didn't have children, Daniel said. Biological children. We knew the risks, so we adopted. Maya and Lucas are our kids in every way that matters, and they're not at risk for any genetic problems, because they're not biologically ours. But they're living in a family built on incest, Richard said bluntly. What happens when they're old enough to understand? When they learn the truth about their parents? They'll never learn the truth, I said firmly, because no one is going to tell them. The secret stays with us. You can't possibly expect us to keep this quiet, Patricia said. Emily already knows you're Richard's daughter, Sarah. She's going to have questions about why we never told her she had a half-sister. And when she finds out you're married to Daniel, she can't know, Daniel interrupted desperately. Please, you can tell her about Sarah being Dad's daughter. Tell her it was a secret that Dad didn't know, whatever you want. But don't tell her about us. Don't tell her that Sarah and I are siblings. We're begging you. Richard and Patricia looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that long-married couples can have. Finally, Patricia spoke. We need time to process this. All of it. The affair, Sarah being Richard's daughter, you two being... She stopped, unable to say it again. Just give us some time. We left shortly after, driving home in stunned silence. The secret was out. Not completely, but enough. Emily knew I was her half-sister. Richard and Patricia knew Daniel and I were half-siblings who were married. The carefully constructed walls we'd built around our life were crumbling. What do we do? I whispered as we pulled into our driveway. I don't know, Daniel said. For the first time in our entire relationship, I genuinely don't know. We went inside and relieved Emily, who'd gotten the kids to bed and was watching TV in the living room. She hugged me when she saw me holding on longer than usual. Mom called, she said quietly. She told me about you, that you're my half-sister. She pulled back and looked at me, her eyes searching my face. I can't believe we've been family this whole time and didn't know it. I didn't know either, I said honestly. My mother never told me. Are you okay? She asked. This must be so weird for you. It's definitely weird, I admitted. But I'm glad you know. I've always thought of you as a sister anyway. She smiled at that and hugged me again before leaving. After she was gone, Daniel and I sat on the couch, emotionally exhausted. She doesn't know about us, he said. Mom and Dad kept that part secret. For now, I said. But how long before it comes out? Before someone figures it out? Maybe never. Maybe we can keep that part buried forever. But even as he said it, I could hear the doubt in his voice. Secrets have a way of coming to light, especially in families. And ours was a big secret, the kind that could tear everything apart. The next few weeks were tense. We saw Richard and Patricia once, a strained dinner where no one quite knew what to say. Richard looked at me differently now, not as his daughter-in-law, but as his daughter, his biological child. There was pain in his eyes, and regret, and a longing to know me that couldn't be fulfilled because too much time had passed. I was 39 years old, a fully formed person, and he'd missed my entire life. I'm sorry, he told me before we left that night, pulling me aside while Daniel and Patricia cleaned up dinner. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't know. If I had known, I had a father, I said gently. Tom Ryan was my father in every way that mattered. You don't need to apologize for not being something I never needed you to be. But that wasn't entirely true, and we both knew it. There was a part of me that had always wondered about my biological father, that had felt incomplete not knowing where half of me came from. And now I knew, but the knowledge came with too many complications to be truly satisfying. December came, and with it the question of how we'd handle Christmas. Every year we spent Christmas Eve with my mom and Christmas Day with the Mitchells, but this year, everything was different. I don't know if I can do Christmas with them, Daniel admitted one night as we lay in bed, sitting around the tree with my parents, pretending everything's normal when they know what we are. So what do we do? Stop seeing your family? Maybe, at least for a while. He rolled over to face me. Or maybe it's time to think about starting fresh somewhere else. We could move. Portland's expensive anyway. And my firm has been talking about opening an office in Seattle. We could go there. Start over. Leave all of this behind. Run away, you mean? If that's what it takes, yes. He reached for my hand. I'm tired, Sarah. I'm tired of carrying this secret. Tired of lying. Tired of feeling like any moment everything could explode. Maybe distance would be good for us. I thought about it. Moving to a new city, a fresh start, leaving behind the complicated web of family and secrets. It was tempting, but it was also running away, and I wasn't sure that was the answer. "Let me think about it," I said. But before I could make a decision, the choice was made for me. Emily called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Hey, can we meet for coffee?" "Just you and me?" I agreed, my stomach knotting with worry. We met at our usual place, a cozy cafe in Northwest Portland. Emily ordered her usual latte, and I got tea, my hands shaking too much to trust myself with hot coffee. "I need to ask you something," Emily said once we'd sat down, "and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay," I said carefully. "The DNA test showed you as my half-sister, which means you and Daniel share a father." She paused, watching my face. "Do you understand what that makes you and Daniel?" My heart stopped. She knew. Somehow she'd figured it out. "Emily, you're half-siblings," she said flatly. "You and my brother are half-siblings, and you've been married for years." She leaned forward. "Tell me I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm wrong." I couldn't speak. The words were stuck in my throat, and I could feel tears starting to form. "Oh my God," Emily breathed. "It's true. You and Daniel have been..." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I think I'm going to be sick." "Emily, please," I said desperately. "Let me explain. We didn't know when we got married. We found out years later, and by then we'd already built a life together. We love each other. That doesn't just go away because of biology. You're his sister," she hissed, her face pale. "That's not love, Sarah. That's sick." "We're the same people we've always been," I pleaded. "Nothing about us has changed except your knowledge of our biology. Everything has changed." She grabbed her purse. I need to go. I need to think." She left, and I sat there alone in the cafe, tears streaming down my face, knowing that everything was about to fall apart. Emily told her parents. Richard and Patricia called us that night, asking us to come over immediately. Daniel and I got a neighbor to watch the kids and drove to their house, both of us knowing what was coming. They were waiting in the living room, their faces grim. Richard spoke first. "We've been wrestling with this for weeks, trying to figure out the right thing to do. We wanted to respect your privacy, to let you live your lives. But Emily knows now, and she's devastated. She can't understand how you could do this, how you could stay together knowing what you are." "Because we love each other," Daniel said, his voice firm despite the tears in his eyes. "Because we built a life together before we knew, and we weren't willing to throw that away." "Well, you're going to have to," Patricia said coldly. "Because we can't be part of this anymore. We can't sit at family dinners and pretend this is okay. We can't watch you two together and not feel sick. And we certainly can't let Maya and Lucas grow up thinking this kind of relationship is acceptable." "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "We're saying we need distance," Richard said. "From both of you. Effective immediately. We won't tell anyone outside the family what you are, but we can't be around you anymore. It's too much." "You're cutting us off," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "You're choosing to lose your son because of something he had no control over." "We're choosing to preserve our family's integrity," Patricia said. "We're choosing not to be complicit in something we find morally reprehensible. We left that night knowing we'd lost Daniel's family. Emily wouldn't speak to us. Richard and Patricia made it clear we weren't welcome at family gatherings. We were exiled, cut off, cast out for loving each other. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. Daniel fell into a depression, barely able to get out of bed some days. He'd lost his entire family over this, and I knew he was questioning whether our relationship was worth that price. I called my mother, sobbing, asking her if we'd made the right choice all those years ago. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I've asked myself that same question every day for 35 years. But what I do know is that love is complicated, and sometimes there are no right answers. You and Daniel found each other in a world of billions of people. You built a life together. You're good parents to Maya and Lucas. Those things matter, even if the circumstances are imperfect. But his family hates us now. Some families can't handle complicated truths, she said gently. That says more about them than it does about you. Christmas came and went quietly. Just the four of us and my mother. No big celebration. Maya and Lucas asked why we weren't seeing Grandma and Grandpa Mitchell, and we made up excuses about scheduling conflicts and promised we'd visit soon. More lies, always more lies. And then, in January, something unexpected happened. Emily showed up at our door. She looked terrible. Thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I let her in, my heart pounding. Daniel came downstairs, freezing when he saw his sister. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Emily said, sitting down in our living room. A lot of reading, actually. About incest, about genetics, about accidental incest in particular. There are more cases than you'd think. Siblings separated at birth who meet and fall in love. Cousins who don't know they're related. It happens. She looked up at us, her eyes red. And I've realized something. What you two did, falling in love, building a life together, that wasn't wrong. You didn't know. How could you be blamed for not knowing? But what happened after? When you found out the truth and chose to stay together. I've been judging that. I've been horrified by it. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, what else could you have done? We could have gotten divorced, Daniel said quietly. That's what your parents think we should have done. But would that have been right? Emily asked. You'd built years of life together. You loved each other. You were partners in every sense. Throwing all that away because of biology, I'm not sure anymore that's the moral choice. I'm not sure there is a clear moral choice in a situation like this. She stood up and walked over to Daniel, taking his hands. You're my brother. You've been my brother my whole life, and I love you. And Sarah, you're my sister now, not just through marriage but through blood. I don't want to lose either of you over this. Daniel pulled her into a hug, and they both started crying. I joined them, the three of us holding each other in our living room, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe we'd be okay. What about Mom and Dad? Daniel asked when we finally pulled apart. Emily shook her head. They're not ready. Maybe they never will be. They're from a different generation, with different values. But I can't let their judgment dictate my relationships. You're my family, and I choose to stand by you. Having Emily back in our lives didn't fix everything, but it helped. She became our anchor, our connection to the family we'd lost. She'd visit on weekends, have dinner with us, play with Maya and Lucas. She never told anyone else our secret, keeping that promise even though it cost her arguments with her parents. Months passed. We didn't move to Seattle. We decided to stay in Portland, to keep living our lives as normally as possible. Daniel threw himself into work, and I focused on teaching and our kids. We went to therapy, both individually and together, working through the trauma of losing his family and the weight of our secret. Our therapist, who we told everything, helped us understand that we weren't monsters. We were just two people who'd fallen in love in complicated circumstances and made the best choices we could with the information we had. You can't change the past, she told us. You can only decide how to move forward, and it seems to me that you've built something beautiful together, despite the obstacles. Two children who have a loving home, a partnership that survived incredible stress, a commitment to each other that's remarkable. Those things have value, regardless of the biology. Maya turned 12, then 13. Lucas grew into a bright, sensitive teenager. We told them they were adopted, but we never told them why we'd chosen adoption instead of having biological children. That secret, we decided, would stay buried. They didn't need to carry the weight of their parents' complicated reality. One evening when Maya was 16, she came to us with her own DNA test results. My heart nearly stopped. She'd done one of those ancestry tests for a school project, despite our gentle discouragement. "Look," she said excitedly, pulling up the results on her laptop. "It shows all my birth family, all these relatives I didn't know I had." "Isn't that cool?" Daniel and I exchanged glances. "That's wonderful, honey," I said carefully. "Are you planning to reach out to any of them?" "Maybe," she said. "There's this one woman who's listed as a close relative, possible first cousin or half-aunt. Her name is Emily Mitchell. Do you know her?" My breath caught. Emily had taken a DNA test, and now it was connecting her to Maya through shared family, through Richard, who was both Emily's father and my biological father, making Emily and Maya related through me. "Emily Mitchell is your Aunt Emily," Daniel said smoothly. "She's my sister, remember?" "That must be who's showing up." Maya frowned. "But it says possible first cousin or half-aunt through both parents. That doesn't make sense if she's just Dad's sister." "These tests aren't always accurate with the exact relationships," I said quickly, "especially with extended family. But yes, that's definitely your Aunt Emily." Maya seemed satisfied with that explanation and went back to exploring her results. After she left, Daniel and I sat in silence, both of us thinking the same thing. The web of secrets was getting more complicated as our children grew older and technology advanced. How long before someone put all the pieces together? But life continued. Years passed. Maya graduated high school and went to college in California to study environmental science. Lucas followed 2 years later, choosing a school in Washington to study art. The house felt empty without them. But Daniel and I rediscovered each other in the quiet. We traveled to Italy, to Japan, to Peru, finally taking all those trips we'd postponed while raising kids. On our 20th anniversary, or what would have been our 20th anniversary, if our marriage had been legal, we renewed our vows in a private ceremony at that same vineyard where we'd originally gotten married. It was just the two of us, Cooper's successor, a rescue mutt named Stella, and an officiant who had no idea about our complicated history. We wrote our own vows, promising to love each other through everything life threw at us, promising to choose each other every day despite the odds. "I know we've been through hell," Daniel said, tears streaming down his face as he held my hands. "I know people would judge us if they knew the truth. I know our relationship exists in this gray area that society doesn't have a box for, but I also know that I've never loved anyone the way I love you. You're my best friend, my partner, my home, and I choose you again in every lifetime, in every circumstance. Biology doesn't define us. Love does." I was crying too, overwhelmed by the weight of 20 years together, by everything we'd survived, by the life we'd built against all odds. When I took that DNA test all those years ago, I was looking for answers about who I was, I said. And I found answers I never expected. But I also found clarity about what matters. What matters is this: you and me, the family we've created, the love we've chosen to honor despite everything working against us. You're right that we exist in a gray area, but I think life is mostly gray areas. I think love is always complicated, and I think we've done the best we could with an impossible situation. We kissed as the sun set over the vineyard, two people who'd defied conventions and expectations and rules to stay together. And in that moment, I didn't feel shame or guilt or fear. I just felt love. Richard died when I was 47. Cancer, swift and merciless. Patricia called Daniel to tell him, and for the first time in nearly 15 years, we went to the Mitchell house. The estrangement had softened over the years. We'd see them occasionally at neutral locations, brief and awkward encounters where everyone pretended things were normal. But we'd never been back to their home. At the funeral, I stood in the back, watching as people eulogized a man I barely knew, but who was my biological father. Emily spoke about his love for his family, his dedication to his work, his quiet strength. She didn't mention me, and I didn't expect her to. But as people filed past the casket to pay their respects, Emily found me. "He left you something," she said quietly, pressing an envelope into my hand. "He wrote it a few months ago after his diagnosis. He wanted you to have it." I waited until I got home to open it. Inside was a letter, written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Sarah, I never got to be your father, and for that I'm profoundly sorry. I missed your first steps, your first words, your graduation, your wedding. I missed knowing you as a child, as a teenager, as the woman you became. That's a loss I'll carry to my grave. But I want you to know that once I learned you existed, I never stopped thinking about you. I couldn't be part of your life the way I wanted to be. Couldn't claim you as my daughter publicly, but I was always aware of you." Emily would tell me about her visits with you, about Maya and Lucas, about your life, and I was proud. Proud of the teacher you became, the mother you are, the person you turned out to be despite my absence. I know what you and Daniel are to each other. I know what you chose and why. I'll admit that when I first found out, I was horrified. I couldn't understand how you could make that choice. But over the years, I've come to see it differently. You and Daniel didn't create this situation. I did, through my affair with your mother. You were innocent victims of choices made before you were born. And when faced with an impossible situation, you chose love. Perhaps that's not the choice I would have made, but I've come to respect it. You deserve happiness, Sarah. You deserve love. And if you found that with Daniel, despite everything, then maybe that's its own kind of miracle. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you deserved. I'm sorry for all the complications my actions caused, but I want you to know that you are my daughter, that I care about you, and that I hope you've lived a good life. With love and regret, Richard. I read the letter 3 times, crying harder each time. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was understanding. It was acknowledgement. It was something. Patricia died 2 years later, peacefully in her sleep. At her funeral, she was remembered as a devoted mother, a loving wife, a pillar of her community. I stood next to Daniel and Emily, finally allowed to publicly grieve as part of the family. And as I watched them lower her casket into the ground next to Richard's, I thought about secrets and lies and the complicated ways families are built. Maya got married when she was 28, to a kind man named Jason who worked in renewable energy. At the wedding, she asked me to dance, and as we swayed to the music, she said, "Thank you for choosing me, for adopting me and Lucas and giving us a family. I know our family is a little unconventional, but I wouldn't change it for anything." "We're the ones who should thank you," I said, hugging her tight. "You made us a family." Lucas came out as gay when he was 25, introducing us to his boyfriend Marcus at a family dinner. "I was nervous to tell you," he admitted. "I know some families don't handle this well." "Lucas," Daniel said firmly, "you're our son. We love you exactly as you are. Nothing you could tell us would change that." After they left, Daniel and I looked at each other and started laughing. That slightly hysterical laughter that comes from recognizing irony. "We're worried about being judged for being gay," Daniel said, "when we're sitting here having committed what most people would consider a much bigger taboo." "Maybe that's the point," I said. "Maybe we understand better than most that love doesn't always fit into neat categories. That sometimes the heart wants what it wants, and fighting it only causes pain." I'm 52 years old now. Daniel is 53. We've been together for 25 years, though our marriage was never legally valid. We have 2 grown children who don't know the full truth about their parents' relationship. We have friends who think we're a normal couple with a normal love story. We have a life that looks from the outside perfectly ordinary, but beneath the surface we carry our secret. The DNA test that revealed an impossible truth. The choice we made to stay together despite it. The family we lost and the family we built. The lies we tell and the love that makes those lies feel necessary. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never taken that test. If I'd lived my whole life in ignorant bliss, never knowing that the man I loved was also my half-brother. Would that have been better? Easier? Or would the truth have found us eventually? The way secrets always seem to. I don't have answers. Even after all these years, I'm not sure we made the right choice. I'm not sure there was a right choice to make. We were handed an impossible situation, and we did the best we could. We chose love over convention, commitment over ease, each other over everyone else. Maybe that makes us selfish. Maybe it makes us brave. Maybe it makes us both. What I do know is this. I love Daniel. I've loved him since that day in the coffee shop 25 years ago, and I'll love him until the day I die. The DNA we share doesn't change the years we've spent together, the memories we've made, the life we've built. It doesn't change the way he makes me laugh, or how he holds me when I cry, or the fact that he's the first person I want to talk to when something good or bad happens. It doesn't change the fact that he's my home. We live in the gray areas, Daniel and I, in the space between what's right and what's wrong, between what society accepts and what it condemns, between the rules we're supposed to follow and the love we couldn't let go. And maybe that's where we'll stay for the rest of our lives, carrying our secret, protecting our family, choosing each other every day, despite the impossibility of it all. I sent my DNA in for a heritage test, expecting to find ancestors and percentages and stories about where I came from. Instead, I found a truth that changed everything, a truth that destroyed one life and created another, a truth that I'll carry until my last breath. And somehow, impossibly, I don't regret it. Because that truth led me here, to this life, this love, this family. And if I had to choose between ignorant happiness and complicated truth, I'd choose truth every time. Even when it hurts, even when it costs everything, even when it means living in the shadows. Because at least it's real. So that's my story. That's the impossible, complicated, morally gray truth about my life. I've never told anyone outside my immediate family. And after today, I probably never will again. But I wanted to put it out there, anonymously, into the void. Because maybe someone else is living in their own impossible situation, making their own complicated choices, loving someone they're not supposed to love. And maybe they need to know they're not alone. Life doesn't always give us clear answers. Love doesn't always follow the rules. And sometimes the only thing we can do is choose what feels true to us, even when the whole world would tell us we're wrong. If you made it this far, thank you for listening without judgment. Thank you for letting me share this burden, even if just for a moment. And if you've got your own impossible truths, your own complicated loves, your own secrets that weigh on you, I see you. You're not alone. We're all just doing the best we can with the situations we're given. If this story resonated with you in any way, or if you've ever faced an impossible choice between love and convention, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes just knowing someone else understands can make all the difference. And if you found this story compelling, if it made you think or feel or question your assumptions about love and family, please consider sharing it and subscribing. Stories like this don't often get told, but they need to be heard. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for keeping an open mind. Until next time.